Property prices in the UK are spiraling out of control, but that is not the only problem. The chronic shortage of housing in the UK is forcing prices upwards, making home ownership unaffordable to many. The average property price in the UK is 9 times average annual salary, and in London, it's over 12 times the average annual salary.
I suppose the property prices have increased significantly in the last 2 to 3 years. For example, a 3-bedroom semi that we were selling 2 years ago would have been no more than about 400. Now we're looking at about 550k for a 3-bedroom semi. So the size of the deposit that first-time buyers have now needs to increase, which is difficult to save that sort of money. And if they're lucky enough to have parents to gift them the deposit, then fine. But so many first-time buyers now are moving out of the area to less expensive areas.
Welcome to another episode where we talk about the current crisis in the UK property market and the panacea for this crisis. According to Halifax House Price Index, average salary is about £31,772 compared to the average national house price of £290,000. This puts house price 9 times higher than income and makes affordability an issue. The housing crisis is a problem for 2 reasons. The crisis is bad because it prevents people owning their own property. It's also bad because it exacerbates social inequality in society. So the big question is this: what medication can be prescribed for this housing crisis? The demand for properties is on the increase in the UK. This is causing property prices and rents to rise. Malcolm is an estate agent in South London area. Malcolm has built up a practice dealing with various investors, buy-to-let landlords and tenants.
Yeah, sure. Paris Residential opened in 2004 and we've always specialised in residential sales, lettings and property management, so yeah.
The rise in property prices in the UK is a big challenge faced by first-time buyers.
Goodness. Property prices have increased significantly in the last 2 to 3 years. For example, a 3-bedroom semi that we were selling 2 years ago would have been no more than about 400. Now we're looking at about 550k for a 3-bedroom semi. So the size of the deposit that first-time buyers have now needs to increase, which is difficult to save that sort of money. And if they're lucky enough to have parents to gift them the deposit, then fine. But so many first-time buyers now are moving out of the area to less expensive areas. 2-bedroom house, mid-terraced house, is going to be somewhere in the region of about 400,000 at present.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And that's a big increase.
for first-time
Again, 18 months ago, we were selling these for 330, 340. So a huge increase in property values in a very short space of time. Yeah, rental market probably is even more acute in a increase in prices. For example, a 3-bedroom semi, a year ago we'd have rented out for $1,350, maybe $1,450 for a really good quality one. Yeah. Now $1,850 up to £2,000 a month. So it's a massive increase.
Apart from other transaction costs, the extra stamp duty payable for second homes adds to extra layer of making home ownership unaffordable.
It perhaps is, but think of the stamp duty that you've now got to pay on a buy-to-let. It's huge, and that again would be putting off potential landlords, because all of a sudden that stamp duty that they're paying, which is so much more than you would pay if you're buying your main residence, is all of a sudden the money that you're making is in the red before you've even gone through a year's worth of income on a tenancy. So again, it's an affordability issue.
The inability of first-time buyer to raise a deposit or to get a mortgage is stopping them climbing the property ladder.
Gone are those days where there are lenders offering you 90% loan to value, 95% loan to value. So people have to save a lot of higher deposits. So it's making it difficult for first-time buyers to buy a property. Secondly, the underwriters, the criteria to approve a loan application, it's very different these days. They need to check your income levels, they need to check your existing portfolio. They're doing a lot of stress testing on the application. So it's not that the market is like what it was before. Third, the construction cost, the labor cost, the materials cost, everything has shot up. So you need to really cherry pick the project you're getting into so that you could take it all the way to the finish line. Because you don't want to start something and leave in the middle, because not only you're burning bridges, but then you're losing your credibility. So you have to be very careful in which project you take up. In essence, it is definitely a great market for people who are brave and determined.
There are numerous reasons why the UK is facing a housing crisis, and they are wage stagnation, our outdated planning laws, inadequate housing supply, lack of social housing due to right to buy, and easy access to finance as a result of the introduction of the buy-to-let mortgage in 1996.
Lack of stock completely. There is certainly perhaps a few less landlords around where some of them have decided to sell. There is a huge amount of people looking to rent, partly because they haven't got the money to get onto the property ladder to buy.
Yes.
So the market for rentals has been flooded with potential tenants, therefore prices have shot up. It's supply and demand.
Many landlords have left the rental market following the reduction of tax relief on mortgage interest and the introduction of 3% stamp duty surcharge on investment properties. All of these add to the housing crisis. Some buy-to-let landlords and developers believe that the shrinking supply of homes in the rental market is attributed to the successive government policies affecting the private rental sector.
Mortgages. You don't have some great mortgage products that existed before. You don't have the 90-95% loan to value. What does that lead to? Higher deposits, big deposits, a lot of savings. So that means younger people, first-time buyers, will have to save a lot of money. Third, costs. Construction cost has shot up, especially for investors. Even for seasoned investors, we're struggling to find good contractors, good materials at a reasonable cost. The costs have shot up. Four, when we finish the product, the tenants go in, that's when the happy days start. But with the rules right now very strict around, evictions have become a major problem because it's pro towards tenants. I understand where the government is coming from, but as landlords, we put our time, money, investment, our credibility at stake and to do something to provide housing. At the same time, we cannot really take a dip or get into rental arrears from the tenants. That's one of the major problems post-pandemic. Evictions has become a huge problem. Fifth one, you need to be very, very clear what project you pick up. So as an investor, you need to make sure you're picking up a project with planning permission in place or a project which is likely to get you a planning permission. Otherwise, time and money is wasted.
One of the effects of the housing crisis is that it contributes to the increase of homelessness in the UK. As of 2023, there were about 271,000 homeless people in the UK. First-time buyers, renters, and buy-to-let landlords are the people most affected by the housing crisis.
First of all, let's start with the affordability crisis. Look at the average salary of a person in London, 36,000 to 40,000. And what is the average cost of a terraced house in London? It's touching 400k to 500k. So how can they even get into the property ladder? There is that crisis there. Secondly, there is supply crisis. So you don't have enough land to go and build a lot of homes. On the other side, councils and boroughs, they have promised that they will do their quota of social housing, and they're probably not living up to the numbers that they promised they would. So there is definitely more demand to get into the property ladder, but affordability is stopping them. Secondly, there's not enough homes. If you want to buy a home right now, and there's not enough land to build new homes. So there is a supply crisis there. That's why the prices are all shooting up. Third, you have the standard, everybody's favorite, finance crisis, right? So you have these mortgages now being stringent, the rates are going up. God knows what kind of a surprise Bank of England is going to come up with. So you have these kind of finance problems where it's not really letting you to go into the property ladder. So there is the combination of these crises is leading to the overall UK housing crisis. I would say that, but I think it's not the end of the world. There are solutions. We have to be creative. We have to reinvent the wheel sometimes, and then we have to probably regulate the law a little bit so that you can accommodate the demands right now we are facing right now. So it's still doable in my opinion, but things have to change at the grassroots level.
Tinashe is a first-time buyer. He has just purchased this 3-bedroom maisonette in southeast London. When this property was visited 3 months ago, it needed renovation. All right, so this is my second time here. I see you've redone these properties.
Yeah.
What challenges do first-time buyers face in this market?
So in the current climate, you're faced with high property prices, shortage of land, and it's very, very difficult to actually get your foot on the property market. And with the likes of the Bank of England raising interest rates, mortgage rates are not really all too appealing at the moment. So it's very, very tough.
Right. And given that you're a first-time buyer, how did you cope? How did you surmount this hurdle as a first-time buyer?
A lot of saving, a lot of planning beforehand, selection of the correct mortgage broker, and just basically being disciplined with monthly salary and keeping expenses low whilst saving up for a deposit.
Right. Okay. And would you say that England has a housing crisis or not? What are your thoughts?
To some degree, it does have, and over time we may move towards being a nation of renters, where ownership will become extremely difficult. So these are things to be very cognizant and aware of.
Right. I see. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thanks very much for having us here.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Cheers.
Having you. Excellent. The issue of housing crisis seems a common problem in most Western countries. Australia has its fair share of housing problems.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and it's one of the reasons why we don't have enough houses being built. You know, you've got lots of population coming in, but because the construction industry is under such enormous pressure. Now, a part of it it goes back in history where they were bidding for, you know, sort of, if you like, contracts on a fixed price. And then, of course, there were labour shortages, there was the cost of materials went through the roof. And so as a result, they simply couldn't build and finish these projects and still make a profit. So this is the reason why so many are going broke, but it underscores another problem. If you've got a shortage of housing being built right now, the seeds are being sown for the next property boom. You've got the Reserve Bank sort of either at peak interest rates or pretty close. You've also got lots and lots of population coming to the country. You've got rents rising and you've got no houses being built. So if you think about a perfect recipe, a perfect storm for another big boom in property prices over the course of the next 2 years or so, you pretty much got it right there.
In Kansas City, the shortage of rental property is also causing rent to increase. This is causing high evictions. In Kansas City, tenants are now fighting back.
People united will never be defeated.
Back in the UK, what does people on the street say about the housing crisis?
I'm here on the streets of Woolwich, southeast London, to speak to people to find out their views on the current state of the UK property market. Let's see what they have to say. So we'd like to talk to you about the current state of the UK property market. Have you bought a home? Are you a homeowner or do you rent?
No, I rent at the moment. I'm renting, yeah.
Okay, and did you face any difficulties or challenges along the process of getting to rent?
Yeah, I mean, the rental market out there is it's very congested. There's so many people wanting to. I had to go through 30 properties until I found the right one, right price, within my budget. A lot of people have got a really low budget, but landlords and housing authorities, they're increasing their rents, everything. So I don't know any other people's, but my situation from last October was terrible. I mean, it was hard just to carry on going to properties and seeing landlords charging £600 for one room.
Are you a first time buyer?
Yeah, it's only one property since, so it's been a long time. So yeah.
And how did you go about, acquiring that property?
Yeah, that's a long time now. Yeah, just through the agents. So we found the property and that's it. So, but as at then, it used to be 5% deposit.
I am renting at the minute. I'm renting a room, so I mean, even then I'm having to have like benefits and stuff like that because it's still difficult.
And what other factors, what other challenges or difficulties did you find in trying to find that rental accommodation?
A lot of people like to have background checks. You have to be earning a certain amount, have a certain amount of place. You can sometimes deal with things like mold, things like mice, and not a lot of council places care.
Homeowner.
Yes, I am. I'm a homeowner.
Okay. And in the process to acquire the property, did you face any difficulties or challenges?
There wasn't any challenges as such. Everything ran smoothly. But when we did get the property we moved into, we looked at so many, and we nearly gave up. But on the last minute, we entered that property and said, yeah, this is it. So it wasn't any challenge at all.
Okay, and how would you sum up the state of the UK property market right now?
I think it's really challenging. But we also got to take a more measured approach and I think if the government wants to really give people the opportunity to buy properties, they have to increase the supply, because what the supply does, it then drives down the cost.
I'm a home owner even, yeah.
And in the steps taken to acquire that property, did you face any challenges?
Yeah, the land registry system is backlogged quite significantly. Solicitors are pretty expensive, and actually it should be a lot more simple. The process doesn't need to be as complicated as what it is.
Okay, so when you talk about certain processes that were complicated, can you be a bit more specific on?
Yeah, sure. So I've just extended my lease, and there's a form that you need to fill in, send it off to the land registry. But actually it's made more complicated than it needs to be, I think. Actually the form is quite straightforward. There should be a bit more guidance and a bit, yeah, it could be simple.
Are you a homeowner or are you renting?
In the process, well, looking to own, but I think it's up and down. So currently now, I guess the news is driving, the demand. So today you hear the house prices are down, tomorrow you hear the house prices are going back up. So there's no consistency, and also, yes, there's Help to Buy, but the process leading to actually getting a mortgage is quite tedious, So for me, it can be done. I have family members who have done it, so that's where I get my inspiration that I can do it. But I know what they've had to go through. So you've got to obviously have a deposit, you've got to save up for it. But then when you have interest rates going up, cost of living is going up, the things that you put aside for getting a house, you start diverting your funds because you're thinking you need to pay your bills. You've got the electric prices going up, gas prices going up. So it's a no-win, really. But I think with determination and hopefully you get a good bank who's willing to give you something, and then maybe you can actually do it, yeah.
Undoubtedly, there's a housing crisis in the UK. At the heart of the crisis are issues of high property price, lack of affordable rental homes, shortage of affordable homes, and of course our anachronic planning laws. So the question is, what medication can be prescribed for this market? A radical housing policy is required. Increasing housing stock will help tackle the housing crisis. Simplifying our planning laws would enhance more house building, and the use of brownfield site could also be used for construction. These are policies which are fundamental, rather than have policies which will stoke up demand. Bringing empty homes into use can also tackle the housing crisis in the UK. According to Leeds Building Society, there are about 676,420 empty homes in England. To tackle this crisis, the council could use a compulsory purchase order to bring empty houses into use. The council could also use the empty dwelling management order to be able to rent out these empty homes so that those in housing need could also use it.
Well, I think as the government perhaps has suggested, they need to build an awful lot more properties. Being in an area where we're predominantly 1930s Victorian houses, you can't squeeze any more of those properties into the area that I am currently marketing our properties from. So it has to lie with new build properties to help alleviate it.
There are other panacea to consider. Building more social home would help, and also creating a community right to buy would all help in tackling the housing crisis. So we've now come to the end of this episode. If you need to find out more, or if you've missed anything, you could go on our Facebook page, Instagram, or on our website. The details are scrolling below. So until next time, it's goodbye from me.
Property, sure.
Property Show.
Brought to you by Menvo Homes Limited.
The Okri Property Show.